Liam adjusted the collar of his suit jacket, the crisp wool a comforting, familiar weight on his shoulders. For 7 years, the rhythm of his life had been defined by Sterling Capital, the elite investment firm that occupied the top 3 floors of the prestigious Meridian Tower. He wasn't a trader or an analyst. He was the executive assistant to the CEO, Victoria Sterling, a position that demanded not just organizational brilliance, but absolute discretion and loyalty. His loyalty, he thought, was complete. He was loyal to the firm, to Victoria, and most of all, to his fiancée, Khloe, a sharp senior analyst who had just been promoted to run the firm's lucrative Asian market portfolio. They had a life planned, a wedding next spring, a down payment saved, and the quiet, comforting knowledge that they were building their success together, brick by brick. But the bricks had begun to crumble 6 months ago. First, it was subtle. Khloe started using Victoria's corporate vision to dismiss Liam's suggestions. Victoria, usually ice-cold and professionally distant, began making light jokes with Khloe in the hallway, their voices dropping whenever Liam approached. The late-night work sessions, initially separate, began to coincide. Liam, ever the dutiful partner, told himself it was the pressure of the new portfolio. He convinced himself the tension he felt was his own professional anxiety. The truth, however, had the brutal clarity of a siren. Happened 2 weeks ago. Liam was in Victoria's private office, organizing the quarterly projections on the massive 4K display, when a calendar alert flashed across the screen, an internal recurring meeting, innocuously titled Q3 Strategy Session. But the location was a suite at the Sinclair Hotel, and the invitees were only Victoria and Khloe. The time: every Tuesday and Thursday, from 7 p.m. to midnight. Liam didn't need to see the photos. The cold, calculated lie was already documented in the company's internal servers. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was a professional conspiracy carried out over his head, using the very systems he managed. Liam walked out of that office not in tears, but in a state of clinical numbness. His mind didn't process the pain, only the solution. For years, Liam had worn his modest salary and humble apartment like armor, a way to prove to himself that he didn't need the shadow of his late grandfather's immense fortune. His grandfather, Arthur Blackwood, was a real estate titan whose holdings were so vast they were largely obscured through a network of LLCs. Arthur had insisted that Liam, the sole heir, learn to live independently, but he'd also made him the controlling member of the largest holding company, Sterling Heights Properties LLC, the firm that owned the Meridian Tower. The very building Victoria's firm leased its headquarters from. Liam had kept this secret from everyone, including Khloe. He only visited the downtown offices of the trust once a year to sign documents. He didn't use the money. He didn't want the entitlement. Until now, that night, Liam didn't confront Khloe. He didn't say a word. He went home, logged onto the trust's encrypted server, and pulled up the master lease agreement for Sterling Capital. His grandfather, a man who saw legal protections as his highest art form, had insisted on a rarely used, ironclad provision, Clause 17.5, moral and fiduciary conduct. It stated that if any named partner or executive engaged in illegal activity or egregious professional or moral misconduct that demonstrably jeopardizes the landlord's reputation or standing, the lease could be terminated with 24 hours written notice. It was a nuclear option meant for situations like public fraud or serious ethical violations, and Victoria, in her arrogance, had clearly never read the fine print. Liam didn't want to simply expose the affair, he wanted to expose the entire foundation of their deceit. He wanted them to make the first move. The next morning, Liam went to work as usual, but instead of coffee, he only felt a strange, coiled anticipation. He had already called his grandfather's most trusted counsel, Mr. Davies, and executed the pre-signed legal documents transferring the active management rights of Sterling Heights Properties LLC to Liam. He was no longer just the controlling member, he was the acting managing partner. At 11 a.m., the dreaded email arrived. Mandatory meeting, Victoria Sterling's office. Liam walked in and found Victoria seated behind her enormous granite desk, her expression a mix of cool distaste and predatory satisfaction. Khloe was perched on the corner of the desk, crossing her long legs, a venomous smirk playing on her lips. Liam, Victoria began, her voice dripping with artificial regret. Please close the door. She slid a document across the desk. This is hard, but necessary. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. Liam felt a brief, hot spike of genuine shock before his control returned. He picked up the letter. The listed reasons were a farce: lack of strategic vision, emotional temperament unsuited for a high-stakes environment, and the cruelest cut, inability to operate outside the shadow of his superiors. Khloe leaned forward, her voice a saccharine whisper. Honestly, Liam, you're just too soft. We need people who can make tough decisions, not people who follow directions. Victoria nodded in agreement. It was necessary, Liam. The firm is moving in a new direction. A stronger direction. We just couldn't afford to carry you anymore. They expected him to beg. They expected tears, rage, or a plea for mercy. Liam slowly folded the termination letter and placed it into his breast pocket. He met Victoria's eyes, then Khloe's. I understand, he said, his voice flat and even. I will collect my personal items and process my departure package. He paused at the door, turning back to them. Thank you for the notification. I'll see you both tomorrow. Khloe giggled, mistaking his calmness for broken resignation. Victoria simply waved a dismissive hand, already turning her attention back to Khloe and their shared celebration. That afternoon, Liam met with Mr. Davies. They formalized the ownership transfer, executed the lease termination notice citing clause 17.5, and briefed the two most formidable-looking security personnel in the city. Liam went home, packed a single duffel bag, and left the key to his apartment, the apartment he paid for, the apartment she now had no claim to. He didn't leave a note. He just made sure the utilities were scheduled for shut-off at midnight. The following morning, Victoria Sterling was running late. She hated being late. She hurried through the lobby of the Meridian Tower, past the expensive modern art and the uniformed doorman, and took the private elevator up to the 42nd floor. The air was already thick with the smell of new money and her authority. She stepped out and froze. Liam was standing near the receptionist's desk. He was wearing a new suit, tailored in a way his executive assistant salary could never have afforded. Beside him stood Mr. Davies, the famous legal counsel, and two imposing security guards in dark uniforms. What in God's name are you doing here, Liam? Victoria barked, instantly furious. I had security briefed. You are no longer permitted on these premises. If you don't leave immediately, I will have you arrested for trespassing. Liam did not move. He raised a hand, stopping Mr. Davies from speaking. Good morning, Victoria, Liam said, his voice carrying clearly down the hallway. I'm not here as Liam, your former executive assistant. I'm here as the acting managing partner of Sterling Heights Properties LLC. Victoria frowned, confused. The landlord. What nonsense is this? You've lost your mind. Get out. Mr. Davies stepped forward, calmly unfolding a thick legal document. Victoria, please. This will be easier if you remain calm. As the CEO of Sterling Capital, you have been served with a notice of immediate lease termination and eviction. Victoria's jaw went slack. Eviction. That's impossible. We have 5 years left on our lease. This is fraud. I'll call my lawyers. Please do, Liam interjected smoothly, finally meeting her eyes. But your lawyers will confirm 3 things. First, that as of 5 p.m. yesterday, I am the legal representative of Sterling Heights Properties. Second, that this building is no longer leased to Sterling Capital, effective immediately. He pointed to a specific paragraph in the document Mr. Davies was holding. And third, they will confirm clause 17.5, moral and fiduciary conduct. The clause allows for immediate termination in cases of egregious professional or moral misconduct that compromises the landlord's interests. Victoria's face, usually so controlled, was a mask of disbelief and rising panic. I don't know what you think you have, Liam, but I am the CEO. My firm is a cornerstone of this city. We have done nothing illegal. You fired me yesterday on fraudulent charges, Victoria, charges that are easily disproven by the very server logs you trusted me to manage, Liam stated, his voice gaining a hard edge. But that's merely a secondary issue. The primary breach of conduct is the documented, ongoing, and unprofessional affair you are conducting with a senior executive of this firm, an action that violates the standards of conduct explicitly required by the building's ownership. It is a severe moral and ethical failing that is now public knowledge within our organization. He looked past her, down the long corridor, where staff members were beginning to gather, whispering. The color drained from Victoria's face as the realization hit her. Her power, her business, her entire headquarters, it was all tied up in this man's quiet secret. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. That was the moment Khloe arrived. She had rushed in, still beaming from their celebratory night, but stopped dead when she saw the security guards and the legal documents. Liam? What is this? She demanded, her voice sharp with accusation. Liam didn't address Victoria. He only looked at Khloe, his eyes entirely empty. Khloe, this building is owned by a trust one control. I just terminated the lease for cause. Victoria's firm must vacate the premises by 5 p.m. today. The entire operation is homeless, as is Victoria, since she sublets the company penthouse upstairs. Khloe's expression shifted from confusion to pure, unadulterated horror. She looked at Victoria, whose powerful empire was visibly collapsing around her, and then back at Liam, the man she had called soft. The wealthy future she had traded him for evaporated in the space of a single, sickening second. You knew about the trust? All this time? Khloe whispered, staggering back against the wall. You let us, fire you. You both needed to show me your true character, and you did, Liam replied, adjusting his cuffs. You chose lies, professional betrayal, and greed. I chose consequence. He turned to the security guards. Gentlemen, no physical force is to be used. However, no files are to leave the premises, and all network access is terminated now. Sterling Capital has until 5 p.m. to remove personal effects. If they are not gone, everything will be boxed and sent to a public storage unit. Victoria let out a sound of pure, strangled fury. You cannot do this. This is ruin. I will sue you. I will destroy you. Liam finally smiled, a cold, empty expression that didn't touch his eyes. You can try, Victoria, he said. But I own the building, I own the contract, and you already gave me the grounds. Have a terrible day. He looked once more at Khloe, who was leaning against the wall, silent tears tracking through her makeup, watching her dream life shatter into 1,000 pieces. Your engagement ring, the keys to the apartment, and the severance package paperwork will all be sent to your mother's address by courier this evening, Liam told her, his voice devoid of emotion. Don't bother trying to call. With a final nod to Mr. Davies, Liam turned and walked back to the private elevator, leaving the chaos, the betrayal, and the ruin of Sterling Capital far behind him. The air on the 42nd floor, once thick with Victoria's authority, was now only filled with the cold scent of legal consequence.